If you find yourself in a similar position one day, will your loyalty be to the Constitution or to Donald J. Trump?
I just said my loyalty, Kristen, is to the Constitution of the United States.
Trump?
But have we talked at all about the unaffordable cost of groceries? Have we talked about the fact that because I brought it up, but young Americans can't afford a home? You didn't bring that up. I brought that up. It's so interesting, Kristen, because I think that Kamala Harris's campaign, and unfortunately, too many of her media allies are more interested in what Donald Trump has said than what Donald Trump did in office. You're more interested in what Kamala Harris is accusing Donald Trump of than what Donald Trump actually did during his 4 years in office, which is deliver peace and prosperity.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about this pretty heated interview between J.D. Vance and Jake Tapper on CNN, in which J.D. Vance is like taking turns sitting down with the mainstream liberal media propagandists, and he is schooling them one by one, okay? I absolutely love J.D. Vance. I think that J.D. Vance was the perfect pick. To be honest with you guys, the closer that we get to the election, the better that he gets when it comes to dealing with the media and their propaganda. And, of course, they're going to want to talk to J.D. Vance about everything except what the American people actually care about, which is the economy, the border, foreign policy. They don't want to talk about any of these things. What they want to talk about is Trump saying something about Democrats being the enemy within, right? And pretending as if Trump is going to use the military against a broad swath of the American people and that he's going to be Hitler, he's going to be a fascist. These are the things they want to talk about, okay? And J.D. Vance is going to set Jake Tapper straight as he boohoo, whines, and cries about Trump saying mean things. And that is essentially going to be the gist of this interview. So I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Aura. This year has seen a number of high-profile data breaches that are raising serious concerns about personal information security. Dell suffered a breach that exposed 3.9 million customers, including sensitive personal information. AT&T exposed 2 breaches affecting 2.5 million customers and impacting another 9 million customers. Finally, Ticketmaster experienced a massive breach compromising over 560 million customer records. But the most alarming of them all, just a few months ago, National Public Data announced that they had suffered a massive breach affecting almost every American. The incident compromised over 2.9 billion records, including information used in background checks such as your full name, your address, your phone number, and most importantly, social security numbers. And it gets worse. It has been confirmed that members of this hacker group have released this personal sensitive information online for free. If you haven't been taking your personal information online seriously, now is the time to change that, because in today's environment, you're more exposed than ever before. Thankfully, I feel secure because I use Aura, today's sponsor. Aura monitors your personal data, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records to alert you about any potential identity theft. They also provide up to $5 million in identity theft insurance just in case the worst happens. Plus, Aura offers you a variety of other features to keep you safe online, including real-time alerts for data breaches, a VPN for secure browsing, data broker opt-out to stop companies from selling your personal information online, a password manager to help you create and store passwords, and much more. I'm not leaving myself or my family vulnerable to data breaches, and if you don't want to either, then you can go to aura.com/BCP to try 2 weeks for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal information has been exposed.
But this is the thing, Jake. We've now spent 5 minutes talking about people in Donald Trump's staff
who think he's not fit for office.
Who he fired.
Who think he's not fit for office.
Oh, they didn't think he was unfit for office until they had a falling out with him because he fired them. And we're not talking about the public policy.
Well,
we're actually talk about how Americans can't afford groceries.
We're actually
Can we talk about the fact that Americans can't afford the cost of housing? Can we talk about the fact that a lot of people out there in Erie, Pennsylvania, they're the ones who suffer and die when people like Mark Esper and Mark Milley don't obey the commander-in-chief's orders?
We're talking about Donald Trump and what he says.
Yes.
And Donald Trump says...
And you'd much rather talk about what Donald Trump allegedly said than what Donald Trump did in office.
I'm talking about
what he did in office, Jake,
what he said publicly.
1.5% inflation.
The military to go after the enemy within, which is the American people.
He did not say that, Jake.
The enemy
he
within?
said that he was going to send the military after the American people. Show me the quote where he said
he was going to. He said the enemy within.
He said far left lunatics. He's talking
like
about
the
people
Pelosi's
rioting
and Schiff.
He's talking about people rioting after the election. I think
the Pelosi's were rioting after the election.
He said
Adam Schiff was rioting after the election.
You're using two separate phrases. He said about using the military that far-left lunatics, people who riot in the wake of an election, people who burn down American cities in the summer of 2020, yes, we should have a federal law enforcement
This is what
response.
he said to Joe Rogan on Friday. The enemy within that he wants the military to go after.
No, this is
the enemy within, a bigger problem than Kim Jong-un.
The second part.
We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. That's who the enemy within.
And did he say that he wants to use the military against those people?
He said he wants to use the military to go after the enemy within.
Here's the game that you're playing. He said
I'm not playing a game.
No. Can I answer the question, please? He said that he wanted to use the military to go after far-left lunatics who are rioting, and he also called them the enemy within. He separately, in a totally different context, in a totally different conversation, said that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff were threats to this country.
Were the enemy within.
Were
the enemy within. He said they were the enemy within.
So every time he uses the exact same phrase, we assume that he uses
I don't know.
military?
I don't throw around the term of enemy within to talk about using the military against going American people.
And you're asking his vice president, but you won't let me answer the question. I'm telling you that Donald Trump has said, and I agree with him, that we should use the U.S. military to go after
Americans.
People who riot, who burn down our cities.
And this was what John Kelly was.
National Guard.
This was what John Kelly was alarmed by: the idea of using the U.S. military to go after Americans. That's what he said.
Donald Trump never said Americans writ large. You keep on putting words in his mouth and my
Are they
mouth.
or are they not Americans?
Far left people who commit acts of violence, who riot. And
now you're doing a very narrow definition of what he said, which is not what he said.
That is what he said. That is what he said. You know what's so funny about this? The easiest way to shut these people down is just to ask them this simple question. Would you agree with the National Guard being used to stop January 6th? Just ask them that question. That's it. Because these people are pretending as if the idea of using the military to stop violence, rioters, people that are burning down cities, okay? They pretend as if this is such a controversial thing. But just ask them, would you agree with the National Guard being used to stop January 6th? Would you agree with that? Just that's the only thing you got to do. That's the only thing you got to do to shut these people up, okay? Because of course they would, right? They have no problems with the idea of the military being used against right-wingers, right, to stop right-wing violence, right? They have no issues with that. What they have an issue with is the military being used to stop left-wing rioters and looters, okay? Because again, if anybody says that the military should be used to stop January 6th, these people would never have a problem with it. They would never, ever, ever say anything about it, right? But only in the context of using the military to stop left-wingers, this is when they boo-hoo, whine, and cry. But what Jake Tapper is doing here is exactly what J.D. Vance is pointing out, which is that he's taking two separate conversations, two separate contexts in which he was talking about the enemy within, and he's trying to make it one. And they're doing this because they believe that the American people are stupid. We've already went over this 1,000 times, okay? In that interview with Maria Bartiromo, Trump was specifically asked by Maria Bartiromo about left-wing rioters and the acts of violence that they commit after Democrats lose elections, which we see them do quite a bit, right? In fact, they do it anytime they don't get their way. Like, for example, if a Supreme Court justice gets nominated or appointed to the court, they commit acts of violence. You saw the BLM riots. You saw the Roe v. Wade riots. We saw the Antifa riots. Like, anytime these people don't get their way, this is what they do, okay? These people are trying to pretend as if Trump, in a whole different, separate conversation, said that he would use the military against Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, okay? He referred to Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff as the enemy from within because of their corrupt actions that they use in order to undermine him as president of the United States. And again, these are two separate conversations. In the conversation in which he's talking about Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff as the enemy from within, not once did he ever suggest using the military against them, okay? He never did that, never said that, didn't even come close. But Jake Tapper is engaging in what I like to call propaganda, right? Intellectual and journalistic dishonesty, because he knows damn well that they were two separate conversations with two different contexts. But again, when it comes to Trump, context goes out the window, right? We've already figured that out, okay? The whole bloodbath thing, yeah, we all know they clearly cannot understand context, right? They don't care because they really, really, really want to make the case to the American people that Trump is Hitler and that he's going to do a whole bunch of things that he didn't do during his first term. But the reason why you know that this is propaganda and that these people are not actually serious is because Joe Biden just last week, as sitting president, said that his political opponent, President Trump, should be locked up. He has to be locked up. This is what he said. While his DOJ is currently trying to lock Trump up. Now, I want you guys to imagine if Trump was sitting president and he said what Joe Biden just said, while his DOJ was currently going after Democrats, okay, charging them, trying to lock them up, and he came out and outwardly said that, yeah, they got to be locked up. What do you think the reaction would be? You don't even have to imagine it. This is what the reaction would be, right? We're watching what the reaction would be right here, right? We already know what the reaction would be. But what's the reaction right now to the fact that Joe Biden said that? Crickets. Nothing. They don't have anything to say about it. When are they going to sit Joe Biden down for an interview and say, hey, Joe, you said that Trump should be locked up. Your DOJ is currently trying to do that. A lot of people think that you have weaponized the DOJ to go after your political opponents. Can you explain what you meant by lock Trump up? And why would you say something like that? In fact, they actually should be asking Kamala Harris about this as well, too. Kamala Harris needs to answer questions about why did the president, your administration, why did he say that Trump should be locked up, right? I mean, why is it that Kamala Harris has not been asked about this one time? Now, J.D. Vance is being asked about a whole bunch of things that Trump said. And again, Trump's not president, okay? But they're not asking Kamala Harris about Joe Biden's comments. Again, it shows you that these people, these so-called journalists, these propagandists, just like when it comes to using the National Guard against the American people, they really don't care as long as it's not the left-wingers, right? They don't care about the National Guard being used against right-wingers, right? They don't care about that. They don't care about Democrats trying to lock up right-wingers and Republicans and conservatives. They don't care. They only care when it affects the Democrats, right? They only care about the National Guard being used against American people when they're used against left-wingers. They only care about a sitting president trying to lock up their political opponents when it's a Republican trying to lock up a Democrat. But when it's the other way around, they could care less. They completely ignore it. They sweep it under the rug. They don't ask questions about it. They have no concerns whatsoever about the sitting president saying that his political opponent should be locked up while his DOJ is currently trying to do that. They don't care at all. But they're boohoo whining and crying about Trump using the military against Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff when he clearly never said that, right? They're concerned about that. Right? They're concerned about Trump rounding up journalists and throwing them into the gulags when he never said that. Again, they're worried about things Trump never said at all, okay? But they're not worried at all about things that Joe Biden has actually said, that Democrats have actually said. Amazing.
Not what he said. But let me ask you the bigger question.
He did say that, Jake. He did. He said that he wanted to use the U.S. military. Let me clarify.
To go after far left lunatics, yes. And then he also added
people who were rioting and looting.
And
he never said.
He added Schiff. And then he added the Pelosi's.
He
added people that don't want the country to succeed.
He said that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi he used in a separate context and a separate conversation. And what you're doing is you're smashing two totally different conversations.
Fox asked him about this last week. And he didn't take issue with it. He said the enemy within is the biggest threat to this country.
But did he say the enemy within, that he's going to use the military against Nancy Pelosi? Donald Trump offered Nancy Pelosi the National Guard on January the 6th, and according to private emails, she rejected it.
So let's talk about things that he wants to do that are feeding into this concern that people like John Kelly and General Mattis and General Milley have. He said on Friday, Special Counsel Jack Smith should get thrown out of the country. He's threatened to arrest election officials who cheated. We know that he believes a lot of people cheated that did not cheat.
Yes, if you violate the law, you should be arrested. Yes.
No one disagrees with that, but he's talking
about... Apparently you do, based on the way you're asking the question.
No, based on the fact that he's accused people that didn't break the law of breaking the law when it comes to the election. And if you want to revisit that, I'm happy to. But Liz Cheney, he said, should be put before a war tribunal. None of that sounds fascist to you at all?
No, of course it doesn't. Of
Putting
course
Liz
it
Cheney
doesn't.
before a military tribunal?
First of all, I don't buy into the premise of what you're saying, Jake, because I just on things that I know that he said, on things that I know that he said, you're imputing things, you're taking words out of context, you're taking two separate conversations and pretending that they were made at the exact same time. So I'm rejecting the premise of your question. I frankly don't believe what you're saying about Donald Trump's words. If you'd like to put up a clip and actually put him in context, I think the American people would realize that Donald Trump is a hell of a lot more reasonable than the people like Liz Cheney who would like to lie us into war. Now, Jake, we also have to remember, I mean, step back a little bit. Well, ask yourself a basic question about network integrity. You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it, and so we covered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is false.
No, it's not false. Because this is what you guys do all the time. Platforms like CNN and MSNBC will platform stories, will blow up stories that do not have any real evidence or proof behind them whatsoever, but they will blow it up because it makes Trump look bad, right? As if the story is legitimate. Let me give you an example. The recent Me Too allegations that have come out against Trump, the model that was hanging out with Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, right? Allegedly 30 years ago, Trump groped her, okay? Now, there's no proof or evidence to back up this claim at all, whatsoever. No eyewitnesses, okay? No DNA evidence, none of these things, nothing at all. And this happened 30 years ago. The woman is a self-admitted Democrat Party activist, a Kamala Harris supporter. And she waited 30 years to reveal something that allegedly happened to her 2 weeks before an election in which she has already stated that she wants Kamala Harris to win. And CNN platformed this story as if it was a legitimate story and that the allegations are legitimate and should be believed. But when it comes to stories like, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop story that came out 2 weeks before the 2020 election, CNN said, oh, no, that's Russian disinformation, even though that story actually had legs, even though that story was 100% legitimate. That's the difference. When it comes to stories that hurt Democrats, the media will go out of their way to sweep it under the rug regardless of legitimacy, regardless of whether or not there are actual legs to the story. They will refuse to do journalism. When it comes to stories that hurt Trump, doesn't matter if there's no evidence to back it up. There's no proof or anything like that. Doesn't matter if it's he said, she said. They will platform it as if it's true. The comment that Trump allegedly made about burying an effing Mexican for $60K or something like that, you've had the family come out and say, that's not true. You've had people who were allegedly in the room come out and say, that's not true. But yet CNN continues to platform the allegations from the individual that said that Trump said this, even though that individual was not in the room. Okay. It's just he said, she said, no real proof that he said it. They continue to platform the story as if it's real, as if Trump actually said it, as if it's factual. This is what they do. And when called out on it, they, oh, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. No, that's exactly what you do. And we have concrete proof and evidence that that is what you do. Every single time. Every single time.
Covered an FBI investigation. I don't know why you want to talk about the FBI investigation.
You covered it in a way that gave credence to anonymous sources' accusations. You did it yourself. Your network did it, Jake. But again, can we talk about the issues that Americans care most about?
I'm talking about things that Donald Trump has said.
Yes.
If you have an issue with whether or not he's talking about the economy enough, that's between you and your running mate. I'm talking about things he has said this week.
Every single rally that he does, he talks about how he wants to unleash American energy so we can lower the cost of groceries. He talks about the fact that housing has become unaffordable. He talks about the wide open border, Jake. Kamala Harris and her allies, you know, it's interesting. Kamala Harris and her media allies, and I would put CNN in this category. You guys,
they wouldn't.
You guys seem to care.
I'll tell you that they wouldn't.
Well, they should watch your network more because you guys seem to care more about Donald Trump's past than the future of the American people. We're running this campaign on making the American dream.
I'm specifically asking about how Donald Trump is going to be president in the future should he win, and then we're being told
he's going to pursue economic policies that lower the cost of groceries and make life more affordable again. He talks about it every single day on the campaign trail, and so do I. What you're talking about is an anonymously sourced story, or one guy
nothing anonymously sourced,
or who one guy who is a disgruntled employee.
I told you,
five other people pushed back against him and said that what he said was dishonest. So why don't we talk about the policy that's affecting American citizens and not what Donald Trump allegedly said, according to one guy who's pissed off because he got fired by Donald Trump?
Yeah, because that hurts Democrats. That's why, right? That's why. The answer is simple. It's because that is not going to help out the Democrats. What they believe is going to help out the Democrats is continuing to focus on things that Trump allegedly said, although there's no proof that he actually said these things. Okay? That's all this is propaganda. And Jake Tapper wants to pretend as if, well, Democrats wouldn't say that we're on their side. Well, yeah, because Democrats believe that if you're not like MSNBC, where you're not kissing their ass 24/7, right, all day long, Trump derangement, they believe that, yeah, you're not on their side. But CNN, at least 80% of the time, is kissing Democrat ass and pushing their propaganda. So, yeah, I mean, clearly to anybody who's actually neutral and in the middle, yes, CNN is a part of the Democrat Party propaganda, right? They're not as overt about it as MSNBC, but they're right there, okay? And at times, they try to be MSNBC.
I didn't bring up any of the things that he said. He said, I didn't bring up.
You brought up John Kelly, and that I just described.
I brought up John Kelly's view of Donald Trump. I didn't bring up John Kelly talking about what Donald Trump said about Hitler's generals. I didn't bring that up. I talked about John Kelly's view of Trump based on something Trump has been saying in the last week. So that's what I asked about.
So John Kelly makes accusations that are rejected by 5 people.
Again, you're talking about something I didn't bring up.
I think that maybe implicates his overall judgment. And I think the fact that he has a worldview that's so oppositional to peace and prosperity suggests that he's not an honest arbiter here. This is not a guy, John Kelly, going to brag to Jeffrey Goldberg, who is interested in the American truth or is interested in telling an honest account of Donald Trump. He's a guy with an axe to grind because Donald Trump fired him and disagreed with him on policy.
So all those 10 people, including the former vice president, Mike Pence, all of these people have this horribly damaged worldview, and they're all just going after Donald Trump because they want to send people into war? That's really your argument?
Absolutely.
It's not like these are conservative.
Absolutely, that's my argument.
These are not conservative Republicans. These aren't conservative Republicans who are concerned about Donald Trump. They're not. That's not right.
All of these people, Jake, they came into office thinking that they could control Donald Trump. That when he said he wanted peace in the world,
Mike Pence thought he could control Donald
Trump.
Yes,
he did. And when he found out that he couldn't, they all turned on Donald Trump, and a lot of them got fired. And we're running, and we're trying to staff the government with people who are going to govern according to principles of peace and prosperity.
Let me ask you.
They're pissed off about it.
Let me ask you because
yeah, I mean, he's 100% right about that, right? His argument is essentially that people like Liz Cheney, who is a warmonger, okay, Adam Kinzinger, all these people that are coming out against Trump, these generals, yeah, they are against Trump because Trump doesn't want to go along with the war machine, right? And he's right about that. That's 100%. That's literally the only reason that Liz Cheney is against Trump, because Liz Cheney straight up voted with Trump, I believe, more than 90% of the time when he was president, right? So clearly there's not an ideological difference between Trump and Liz Cheney, at least from domestic policy perspective, right? From that perspective, no. But when it comes to foreign policy, there's a huge difference. And that quite literally is the main reason why she's so anti-Trump. I mean, this woman has essentially abandoned her pro-life principles and become pro-abortion, right? She's pro-abortion now to support Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris agrees with her on foreign policy. So yes, that's exactly what's happening. And if you can't see that, then, you know, clearly you're blind to the reality of politics and what's happening. So shout out to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, in my opinion, I think he was the best pick to deal with this type of nonsense from the media, right? I really think that anybody else Trump would have picked probably would not have been as good as J.D. Vance has been when it comes to dealing with this, because J.D. Vance really pushed back against Jake Tapper. I mean, he raised his voice, right? He got very, very, very heated with Jake Tapper, right? He didn't allow himself to be run over by Jake Tapper. And, you know, I think that J.D. Vance is the exact type of bulldog that Trump needs in his corner, especially if he wins this election, because best believe the Trump derangement is not going to stop. If Trump wins the election, they're going to turn it up to a whole new level. They're going to try to impeach the man. They're going to try to get him out of office. They're going to do anything they can in order to try to take him down. It's not going to stop. It's just going to get worse. And you need somebody like J.D. Vance there to be in the president's corner, because, again, these people are going to turn up to a whole new level if Trump wins. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.